Okay, so today we are starting simplifying radicals. Radicals are just these little things. What else do we call these? What have y'all called them before? Square roots, okay? So today we are looking at our square roots. It is important to know your perfect squares. Does anyone know what a perfect square is? What does it mean when I say a number is a perfect square? Yes, Enzo? When you take the what, it gives you a whole number? The square root of it. Okay, so it's very important to be able to identify these perfect squares because it's going to help us. Okay, the way that we're going to make our list for our perfect squares is we are just going to square all of our integers. So what's 1 squared? 1. Because 1 squared is 1 times 1. Remember, when you square a number, it means you're multiplying it by itself. What is 2 squared? 4. What's 3 squared? 4 squared. 5 squared. 6 squared. 30 what?
36.
6. 7 squared. 8 squared. 9 squared. 10 squared. 11 squared. 12 squared. 13 squared. 14 squared. And 15 squared. 225. Very good. So, this column of n squares, these are all your perfect square values. Okay? What does that mean? I can take the square root of 121 and I would get a whole number, 11. Is there any perfect square that's not on this list that's between 1 and 225? Like, is 6 a perfect square? Is 6 on my list of perfect squares? Again, this is the perfect square. Helps if I can spell. Square column. Again, this is the perfect square column. This is the perfect square column. The other column is what you get when you take the square root of your perfect square. So, if a number is not on the perfect square list, it is not a perfect square. Now, that's only the case up to 225. We're not going to list out all perfect squares up to like infinity. Okay? But so, a number between 1 and 225 is not a perfect square if it's not on this list. Okay? And again, what does a perfect square mean? You take the square root and you get a whole number, which makes it perfect. So, when I do these, guys, I am always going to start on the calculator. Always. So, let's go to our calculator. We need to be able to identify where the square root button is. Okay? A lot of these you can do just on the calculator. So, look, don't yell it out. Look and see if you can identify and find where the square root button is. Okay, look on your calculator. Everybody, look on your calculator and see if you can find the square root button. Okay, Faze, where did you find it?
I found it on the x squared.
It's above the x squared and it's in blue. That's why you do second x squared. Now you have a square root sign on your calculator. Did we all find that? The x squared button right above it is blue, so I hit the second, which is my blue button, x squared. Then I get the square root. What am I taking the square root of? 25. And I get 5. Should I put a square root around this 5? No! What's the calculator tell me the square root of 25 is? 5. 5. That's it. Done. Yes, ma'am.
When I hit the square root thing, it doesn't like show me the square root.
Are you hitting second first? Because anything in blue, you have to hit the blue button first. Yes, Connor?
Can you go back up through the tables real quick?
No. Okay. Square root of 169. I get a whole number. How great is that? The answer is just 13. Is 169 on my list? Yes. What's the square root of 169? 13. Okay. 441 is not on my list because we stopped at 225. Does that mean it's not a perfect square? No. Let's type this in the calculator. Negative square root of 441. And we get what? Negative 21. Guys, anytime I do this and I get just a normal number on the calculator, we're just done. The calculator does it for us. Okay? 2 square root of 144 is what? 24. Done. Okay? Next one. Negative square root of a fraction. Okay, this negative square root of 1 over 64 is negative 1 over 8. Now, I do want to talk about why this one works like that. We haven't looked at any fractions yet. The negative's just out in front, that's why my answer is negative. Okay, so negative, keep the negative out in front. I can split this fraction up into the square root of 1 and the square root of 64. Okay, so then I get negative. What is the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 64? There we go. That's why the calculator gave me negative 1/8. Okay, let's look at this one. It's a fraction. You can split it up. The square root of 169 over the square root of 225. What is the square root of 169? 13 over, what is the square root of 225? Okay, so if you have the square root of a fraction, you can do the square root of the numerator at the top, the square root of the denominator, the bottom. And then there's your answer. Now, you do need to make sure it doesn't simplify. Like if I got 2 over 4, I wouldn't leave 2/4 as my answer. But is there any common factor of 13 and 15 other than 1? What are the factors of 13, guys? Factors of it are smaller. Like what do you multiply and get 13? What 2 numbers can you multiply together and get 13? Always at least 1 and itself. We're only looking at whole numbers. When you're talking about factors, it's only whole numbers, guys. 1 and 13, meaning 13's prime. 13's only divisible by 1 in itself. So I cannot simplify 13 over 15. Remember, you also can go to your calculator and type it in as a fraction, 13 over 15. And it reduces it for you. This one doesn't reduce because there's no common factors other than 1. Okay? Next, I have the 3 on the outside. Square root of 361 over the square root of 576. Well, what is the square root of 361? 19. So this is the 3's on the outside. 19 over the square root of 576 is 24. What does it mean whenever you have a number glued to a square root? What operation do you think you're doing there? Multiplication. So let's type that in our calculator. 3 times a fraction of 19 over 24. And we get 19 over 8. Now guys, could you just type this in the calculator exactly as you see it? 3 square root of a fraction, 361 over 576, and we get 19 over 8. Okay? How are we feeling about these? Are we liking that the calculator can do these for us? Let's just type this one in the calculator. Negative 4 square root of 484. And we get negative 88. Done. We like this? Okay, do you think it's going to stay this easy the whole time?
Nope.
No, it's not. Now we're going on to our unperfect world. It says not everything is perfect. When you find the square root of a number that is not a perfect square, you have something called an irrational square root. However, irrational square roots can be simplified sometimes, not always. Okay? So, how would I know I have an irrational square root? Well, let's look. The square root of 92 is not a whole number. So that makes it irrational. Okay? So, we're going to put our calculator to the side. There's 2 columns on our notes. I'm going to teach you one way for the first column, one way for the second column. You get to choose what is best for you. Okay? Some of our brains work different ways, and I want to give you 2 options. Some of y'all are going to think the first way is super easy, and that's what's going to be best for you. Some of y'all are going to think the first way is long and stupid, and the second way is going to work best for you. I do not care. Okay? Do whatever's best for you. On our notes, please do it the way I'm having you do it, because then you'll be able to know which one works best for you if you try both of them. How many of us remember doing factor trees back in like 4th grade? I think 4th grade? 3rd grade maybe? So you clearly don't remember it, and that is okay. You remember it-ish, Face? What do you remember?
Isn't it like you stem from a number and then it stems out into...
Oh, it's coming back to us? We are factor treeing this. So I'm going to take my 92, and I'm drawing 2 branches from it. Oh, it's coming back. Okay, we are going to find prime numbers that 92 is divisible by. We don't want to use 1 because dividing by 1 doesn't change your number. Okay, so I always start with 2. Is 92 divisible by 2? Yes, and you get what? 46. So it's 2 and 46. 2 and 46 give you 92. Circle your prime numbers because you're no longer going to branch off if the numbers are prime. You're not going to factor something that's only divisible by 1 in itself. So 2 is prime. Circle it. Okay, 46. Anytime you have a large even number, it's not prime because it's divisible by 2. All even numbers are divisible by 2. So what is 46 divided by 2? 23. 23 is not an even number. Does that mean it's prime? Can you have a non-prime odd number? Yeah. Okay, so let's make sure 23 is prime, or let's see if it is. I'm only going to do 23 divided by the odd numbers. Because if it were an even number, it would be divisible by even numbers. 23 divided by 3, I don't get a whole number, so it's not divisible. Divided by 5, not a whole number. Divided by 7, not a whole number. Divided by 9. Divided by 11. Divided by 12. Divided by 13. Divided by 15. Divided by 17. Divided by 19. Divided by 21. Divided by 23. What's the only thing that 23 is divisible by? 23 and 1. Okay, making it prime. Circle it. Okay. All of my branches are now prime. All of them are circled. So I'm done doing my prime factorization. So we're going to draw our square root sign again. And we're going to replace 92 with 2 times 2 times 23. Okay? Now, sometimes I tell y'all weird, mean, obscure, somewhat demented analogies, but it's going to help you remember this, okay? So, I say these people are in prison, okay? If you're under the radical, you're in prison. You don't want to be in prison, so you're going to try to break out, okay? Does that make sense? You're only going to break out with your best friend, okay? We go with that? Because you don't trust some random stranger. So we're going to, and we're only best friends with people that are exactly like us. Okay, again, does this analogy mean real life? No, it's just analogy. Okay, so do I have any best friends? Do I have any numbers that are exactly the same? What are they? 2 and 2. Circle them. They're best friends. They're going to break free. Where do they want to go? Outside. Now, if it were so easy to break out of prison, don't you think more people would do it? So do you think they both make it out? Only one makes it out. And the other one's gone. The 23 doesn't have a friend. He does not get a break out of prison. So he has to stay in prison. Good? Again, morbid, yes. Will you remember it? Probably. I used to say you have to go outside with your best friend. And this was just a house. And these were kids that went outside and played. And then people were like, but where did one of the friends go? Why there's only one friend outside? Exactly. So I changed it a little bit. Okay? Now, just like on the first page, you can check yourself. Okay, so let's go to our calculator and we're going to retype in the square root of 92. We know we're going to get this ugly decimal because it's irrational. But then let's type in our answer, 2 square root of 23. Do I get the same ugly decimal? Yeah. Because they're equivalent values. These are equal to each other. See how there's an equal sign there? If this gives you one decimal and this gives you a different decimal, then you are definitely wrong. Okay? We good? So we're done. Because 23 is prime. I can't simplify it anymore. When we are simplifying radicals, your goal is to get the smallest number left in the square root as possible. Okay? You want to take as much out as you can. Now let's talk about why this worked. What's 2 times 2? 4. What's the square root of 4? That's why the 2 gets to come out. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Now I'm going to show you an easier way to find factors on the calculator. First of all, we're always starting and doing square root of 247. Square root of 247, put it in the calculator. Everybody. Square root of 247 in the calculator. And we get this ugly decimal. Okay? So, if you go to y equals, clear out what's there. Everybody go to y equals. I'm going to show you an easy way to find factor pairs. The number we're trying to factor is 247 divided by x. So whatever you're finding factors of divided by x. Yes, Connor?
What happens if there's 3 friends that want to have you?
You only have a best friend. We don't like having 3 people. We are only best friends. You have to leave them behind. You can't have 2 best friends, only 1. Okay? So, again, the number you're trying to find factors of divided by x. Go to the table. And there's all your factor pairs, but we only can look at what kind of numbers? Say it again. When you factor something like factors of 4, 1 and 4, 2 and 2. So you only look at not decimals. What's the other kind of numbers, guys? Come on. Whole numbers. Okay, yes.
How do you get to the table again?
Second graph. See how table's written in blue? Top
That's
left.
the last thing you want to look at, guys, is the decimals.
Yeah.
Those aren't even options.
Decimals are a definite no. So, let's look at numbers that 247 are divisible by. 1 and 247, you're never going to use that one, okay, because that just means it's prime. So let's go along our y column and try to find any other whole numbers. I see a ton of decimals. Does that mean I should stop? No. Oh, look, I found a factor pair. So what can I break 247 up into? 13 times 19. Is 13 divisible by any number other than 1 in itself? No, so it's prime. We circle our prime numbers. Is 19 divisible by any number other than 1 in itself? No, so 19's prime. So I'm done with my factor tree. So this becomes the square root of 13 times 19. Are those friends? No. So can they break out? No. So this one cannot simplify, which means it's just equal to the square root of 247. Do you think if we're working on simplifying square roots, guys, simplifying radicals, that I'm going to give you a lot of those? If I'm wanting you to simplify, do you think I'm going to give you a bunch that can't be simplified?
No.
No, I want us to practice simplifying. So almost all of them are going to be able to be simplified. Okay? There's really nothing to check on that one. Good? Okay, next one. We always start with the calculator. Square root of 63. Let's all do this because the more times we do it on our calculator, the more likely we are to remember where our square root signs are. Square root of 63. And I get a decimal. Okay, so I'm going to factor tree this. 63 is not even, so it's not divisible by 2. Is 63 divisible by 3? Yes, so 3 and 21. 3 is prime, circled prime. Circle 3. What is 21 divisible by? 3 and 7. 3 is prime, 7 is prime. So I'm done with my factor tree. Good with that? Square root of 3 times 7. Do I have a pair? Yes. How many go outside? Just one, the other's gone. What's left inside? The 7. So 3 square root 7. What should we do now? Type it in our calculator and make sure it matches the square root of 63. Do those decimals match? Yes, we did it correctly. Good? Okay, 5 square root 72. Type our last one in the calculator, 5 square root 72. And we get a decimal, so we need to factor tree this. Okay? Factor tree 72. 5 isn't part of the 72. It's on the outside multiplied with it. So don't worry about the 5 right now. We're just factor treeing 72. 72 is even, so it's divisible by 2 and what? 36. Circle your 2. 36 is still even, so it's divisible by 2 and what? 18. 18 is still even, so 18 is divisible by what? 2 and 9. 9 is not even, but 9 is divisible by what?
3.
3 and 3. What'd you say?
They're so much best friends.
So, I have the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. I have 1, 2, 3 2s, 1, 2, 3s. And then don't forget about this 5 on the outside. So I have to keep my 5 on the outside. You can make sure that you factored this properly by doing 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Do I get what I was trying to factor? Yes, so 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 is equivalent to 72. Okay, so I just wrote 72 a different way. Drop your 5 down. Do I have a pair of friends? Yes, I have one pair. Go outside, but only one makes it out. Then I have another pair. Circle your pair of 3s. 1 3's out. Does that 2 have a friend? No, they have to stay inside. Good with that? Okay, what is 5 times 2 times 3? 30. So this becomes 30 square root 2. So let's type that in our calculator. 30 square root 2. Do those decimals match? Yes. Is 2 a pretty small number? Yeah, it is. Remember, when we're simplifying these radicals, our goal is to have the smallest number under the square root as possible. Okay? So that is the factor tree method. Now I'm going to show you the perfect square method, and that's how we're going to do the next column. In order to do the perfect square method, you need to know your perfect square. So I'm going to write them out up at the top. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144, 169, 196, and 225. Okay, so I just wrote out all my perfect squares there. It's a good idea because you want to see it. Now, is 2 a really good perfect square? Or does, not 2, sorry. Is 1 a good perfect square, or does that just mean my number's prime? If something's divisible by 1, does that change the number? No, so I'm not going to really look at the 1, okay? My smallest perfect square I care about is 4. Okay, so just like before, go straight to the calculator, square root of 24, and I get a decimal, okay? So you could factor tree this, but I'm going to show you a different way. Go to y equals, and we're going to type in 24 divided by x. The number we're wanting to simplify divided by x. So it would be a good idea to practice this so we remember where these things are on our calculators. So go to y equals, and you're typing in 24 divided by x. Then we're going to go to the table. Start up where x is 1. I'm wanting to see if there are any numbers on this table that are also on my perfect square list. Okay? So, and we're only looking at whole numbers, remember. You cannot look at the decimals. Decimals are not factor pairs. So 1 and 24. 24 is not on my list. 2 and 12. 2 is not on my list. 12 is not on my list. 3 and 8. 3 is not on my list. 8 is not on my list. 4 and 6. Is 4 on my list? Yes. So I can break this up into the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. Well, what is the square root of 4? 2. Square root of 6. What are the factors of 6? What are factors of 6? 2 and 3. Are 2 and 3 on this list? No, so I cannot simplify the square root of 6. So it's 2 square root 6. Remember, factors always have to be the number or smaller. Multiples are when you multiply and it gets bigger. Okay, so then we can check. 2 square root 6. Do those decimals match? Yep, we're good. Okay, let's try the next one. -3 square root 192. Okay, so let's go to our calculator, and we're going to do 192 divided by x. So let's all go on our calculator and do 192 divided by x. Then we're going to go to our table. 2 and 96. Is 96 on my list? Where? No, you jump from 81 to 100. Is 64 on my list? Yes. Always break it up. I'm going to put the -3 out in front. But always break your number up where the perfect square goes first. So I'm going to break 192 up into 3 and 64. 64 is on my list. So it's going to go first. So square root of 64. And what's paired with 64 on my calculator? 3. Square root of 3. Again, drop down your -3. What's the square root of 64? 8. Square root of 3. Well, what is Negative 3 times 8. Negative 24. Square root 3. 3's a prime number, so it definitely cannot be simplified. So negative 24 square root of 3. So we're going to type negative 24 square root of 3 in our calculator. Do those decimals match? Yes, so we did it correctly. Again, your original and your answer should always give you the same exact decimals. Okay, the square root of 98. We get a decimal. So let's go to y equals and type in 98 divided by x. So let's go to our calculator. 98 divided by x. Go to the table. Oh, what do I see here? Is 49 on my perfect square list? Yes, so I'm going to break this up into the square root of 49 times the square root. What is 49 paired with? What's 49 paired with? 2. Well, what is the square root of 49? 7. 2 is prime, so I know that that is all the way simplified. So 7 square root 2. Again, you can put this in your calculator, and we get the same decimal. Okay? One last one, guys. 2 square root 48. And I get a decimal. Okay, so let's go to y equals, and I'm going to do 48 divided by x, the number I'm wanting to find factors of divided by x. Go to the table. I'm keeping my 2 just out in front. Is 4 on the list? Yeah, so I'm going to break this up as the square root of 4. And what is 4 paired with? What is 4 paired with? 4 times what gives you 48? 12. Okay, so 2 stays 2. What is the square root of 4? 2. Square root 2. Sorry, square root 12. Okay, what is 2 times 2? 4. Square root 12. Is 12 a prime number, guys? No even numbers other than 2 are prime. Is 12 prime? No, it's at least divisible by 2. Is 12 divisible by any of these numbers on my list? Okay, so let's see. If I do type this in, 4 square root 12, do I get the same decimals? Yeah, because they are equivalent values. However, is this fully simplified? No, you need to go one step further. So I'm going to keep my 4 on the outside. And how can I break up the square root of 12? What perfect square is 12 divisible by? 4. 4 times what? 3. Okay? So just because you get equivalent values and you're able to take out a perfect square doesn't mean you're done. If you don't take out the biggest perfect square, it's okay. It just means that you're going to have more steps. Okay? So I have my 4. And then what's the square root of 4? 2. And then square root of 3. Okay, what is 4 times 2? 8. Square root of 3. 3 is prime, so I know I can't simplify that anymore. So 8 square root 3. Does that also give me the same decimal? So on a multiple choice question, and it said fully simplify this. If this was an answer choice and the decimals match, does that mean that's your correct answer? Is that my answer here? No, we went further, okay? So just because you have equivalent decimals doesn't mean that is the correct answer. You need to make sure you cannot go any further, that the number under the radical is not divisible by any perfect squares. Yes, Enzo? Because I was trying to show that if I choose one that's not the greatest perfect square, you can just do the process again, and then it works. Now, my guess is some of us realize that 3 and 16. 16's on my list, right? So I could have broken this up as the square root of 16 and the square root of 3. Well, what is the square root of 16? 4 times the number that's already out there, which is what? And you get 8. Okay? So there's more than one correct way to get to the answer. Okay. I am now going to pull up some of our delta math problems. Okay, I strongly suggest we pay attention. There's two sections oversimplifying your radicals. This one is the one that says guided, okay? So, you have to do the guided one using the perfect square method, okay? Tell me a number that 300 is divisible by that's on my perfect square list. We don't use 1. Look at the perfect square list. You wrote them. Tell me a number on the perfect square list that 300 is divisible by. 100. Always, guys, put your perfect square first. 100 is the perfect square. What's 300 divided by 100? 3. The non-perfect square goes in the second box. Okay, are we okay with how I did that? Then we click try. That means we got it right. Now we need to go one step further. What is the square root of 100?
10.
10, should that go under the radical or outside the radical? Outside, because when you take the square root, if you get a whole number, it leaves the radical. Can 3 leave the radical? No, 3 is not a perfect square. Try. And then it says submit answer. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay, tell me a number that 128 is divisible by that's a perfect square. So I'm going to try a smaller one. I'm going to do 4. 4 times what gives you 128? 30 what? 32. Okay, so that means that's true. What's the square root of 4? 2. Let's make sure we're paying attention. I'm trying to help you. So let's put our phones away. Okay. Phones are away right now. Okay, so notice how it didn't say submit your answer because we're not done. We're not fully simplified enough. So that means 32 is divisible by a perfect square. Tell me a number that 32 is divisible by that's on our perfect square list. 16. 16's on my perfect square list. Well, 32 divided by 16 is what? 2. So the 2 goes there. Guys, I really would pay attention. Okay? I'm trying to help y'all. And it says that's correct. Well, what is the square root of 16? 4. So 4 goes there. Does the 2 get to go outside? No. 2 stays there. See how it's helping me go from step to step? And then the 2 and the 4 are both outside. What's 2 times 4? 8. Square root 2. Now I'm done. Good? So even if you don't take out the largest perfect square first, and see how it says a fastest path and a slowest path? So there's multiple ways to do these. Okay? Are we all good?